All right, what's up YouTube? How's it going? Back with another video. This one's gonna be a lot shorter than the last one because I know the last one was like, I don't know, 50 minutes or so. And this is just my video to explain kind of, okay, so I did a little bit of like why I'm making YouTube videos. That was number one. Number two was what I've already done in terms of learning to code. And then number three today is about what am I going to do next? How do I see this playing out? So in my last video, I talked a little bit about, okay, I had done like Ruby and thought I was gonna go the SaaS direction. And then I sort of pivoted from that to doing more JavaScript and more cryptocurrency, or rather blockchain, cryptocurrency stuff. And that's still gonna be the case. Like everything I said in the last video about why I made that big transition still holds true. And one of the things I've noticed about my journey learning to code, and probably my weakness, my greatest weakness has been that I do get a little bit of ADD. And since I sort of quit my job full time, there hasn't been a lot of linearity to my journey. It's been like, okay, keep doing launch school and Ruby. Well, no, I need to do Rails, but Rails is too complex. Go back to Sinatra. Okay, Sinatra, but I have to go back to Rails because of authentication concerns. And it's been sort of scatterbrained. And I think that's one of the huge benefits of a boot camp is that the curriculum is very structured, and the instructors and the companies have a good idea of what it is you should learn next and in what order and for a goal. And that goal for them is to get a job. And again, we're not going for that goal, but I think that linearity is really important. And so after some careful consideration these past couple weeks, and some deep thought, and referencing actually one of Ryan Culp's posts, I've decided on a very specific sort of track going forward. And that track is gonna be going back to launch school, enrolling in their JavaScript track. So we're at like today's February 7th. So we're basically like still early in 2021. So it's gonna be JavaScript launch school as the primary, call it 65% of the coding I'll do will be in there. And the goal is to get through all of the important modules, which encompass backend fundamentals, database, networked applications. We don't go into a lot of like fancy frameworks in launch school, which I think is good. I think it's more about concepts, but that involves like a ton of practice problems and quizzes and assessments and different things. So it's gonna be JavaScript, launch school, and I think with my background in Ruby, I can probably get through the first bits of it, like the first 2 to 3 big chunks pretty quickly because I have a foundation in launch school, especially like how they think and what they're expecting of me. But getting more into like database interactions, more complex server architecture, MVC, more complex object-oriented programming, it's all gonna be kind of new, at least at the levels of depth that they want me to learn at. And it's one of those things where as I've been diving into other JavaScript resources, so in preparation for the crypto coding that I'm doing, I had to do like a JavaScript crash course. And what I notice is even doing the crash course and coming away from it with learnings is that when I'm doing problem solving with JavaScript and like when I'm interacting with my classmates or when we're doing assignments in my current blockchain bootcamp, I remember things that launch school taught me at a level of understanding that my other classmates don't have, like why, for example, in each iterator in Ruby, what is the return value of each versus the return value of map, and why does that matter for operating on arrays of data? And I feel like it's funny, I can contrast my understanding of Ruby iterators with my understanding of JavaScript iterators and feel like I really don't think I understand JavaScript iterators very well. And they're different than Ruby operators, and I want that same depth of understanding, and that only comes from like, you know, the weeks I spent studying Ruby in launch school. So I think there's no kind of avoiding it if I want to get where I want to get. I'm extending my timeline. I mean, there's no timeline. It's just, okay, this is now like 65-75% of the work is JavaScript within launch school, while I'm still doing ChainShot. So now I have JavaScript, which is like 60 to 70% of the coding. ChainShot will be the other 30%. It's the crypto bootcamp. It's 3 hours, 4 days a week. It's not a ton of time, 12 hours a week. And it's about building small things, researching like real world APIs. So if launch school is more conceptual and fundamental and slower, but more about like grounding yourself in these sort of abstract and universal concepts, ChainShot is the direct opposite, where it's specific frameworks like Ethers.js specific backend frameworks, specific frameworks for interacting with blockchain, and real world, real life projects. So to me, it's a great balance. Fundamentals plus stuff to keep me interested. I'll work out the timing and schedule and stuff later, but I think that's a really nice balance to have both, because too much launch school just feels like you're just like doing like a kata every single day over and over and over and never doing any fighting, if you were to use that metaphor, and a chain shot would be the other. So we have launch school in JavaScript, which is the foundation, and I'm gonna make that and get through a lot farther than I ever got through it in Ruby. I can certainly speak, just relatively speaking broadly, launch school requires a depth of understanding that I haven't seen anywhere else on the web, which is why it takes so damn long. But it really forces you to be like, do I understand these concepts in a holistic and sort of enveloping way, versus do I get it good enough to use it in this one particular use case? So it's gonna be, I'm sure I'm gonna make another video and be like, oh, I'm sick of whatever, but I think it's necessary. And when I looked at Ryan's one recent post Ryan had done, he recommended this same, and he had said some of the same stuff, which is like, when you go through your educational path, and he went to entrepreneurship, so it's the only person I know who's kind of done this, you want to stick to more fundamental concepts before getting seduced by things like Vue or React or Express, which are all these sort of sexy frameworks that sit on top of JavaScript, or Rails even, and they're also just a lot more complicated. What you want is to stay grounded in the fundamentals, even though it's not as fun, for a while. And so for me, I'm thinking like, you know, around 6 months or so, 5 months or so, February to say maybe end of June, until I think like I'll have made significant enough progress in the launch school JavaScript track to sort of reevaluate where I'm at. And it actually works really well, because my marketing consulting client, I signed a contract until the end of June, so it was 6 months from Jan, and that could line up really well. You know, maybe at that point I can start making money from development. I have projects that are making money, but I just kind of feel like, okay, I'll revisit this again in 6 months. I'm not gonna mess with it from now until then. So it'll be crypto through ChainShot, so let's call it Solidity, and some JavaScript through ChainShot, more projects, more real world, foundations, fundamentals, concepts, more abstract stuff through launch school. And again, like, this is a 6-month plan, so I'm not gonna fuck with it. And that's where I've struggled, is like, even this morning, you know, I'm doing a ChainShot weekend assignment, and some of it involves having to understand some front end stuff, and I'm like, I don't know anything about JavaScript on the front end, so I just went and looked at what's the simplest way to just like get stuff to show up on a front end from a JavaScript backend. It's something called, I found EJS, which reminds me exactly of ERB, which was something that I was trying to learn before in Ruby. Same exact thing, they function literally identically, which is fantastic. And again, it underlines the importance of concepts that you have embedded languages that sit on front ends. Or I could have tried to learn React, but that's not for me right now. The React and stuff will come much later on in the journey. So getting back to the fundamentals, stop having ADD. It's 6 months, it's ChainShot, it's launch school, it's my marketing client, probably a second marketing client. I anticipate that my portfolio will look like, by the end of February, 2 marketing clients, ChainShot will be probably fairly busy, launch school will probably be less busy. End of March, ChainShot's over, launch school is ramped way up. April, May, June, I'm like knee deep in the marketing stuff, I'm knee deep in the coding stuff, and hopefully spinning up some side projects to maintain a connection to the real world. So that's my plan. I'm trying really hard not to get frustrated or discouraged. I think that's, you know, something that could easily happen. But actually I feel really good, because I think the most frustrating times for me when it comes to the coding journey are when I feel like I don't know what to do next. And the good thing about launch school is that it's super rigorous, and I know there'll always be lessons for me to do and important things for me to learn until, you know, I really feel like I could actually build an app from scratch. And I remember Ryan's timeline, he had like this sketch of like, after this many weeks, this is how I felt. And like, it was about 52 weeks when he's like, now I think I can build anything I want. So it's gotta be a year. That's October to October for me. I'm totally fine. I think I need to just reset expectations for myself, not live like such a Spartan. That's why I'm taking another marketing client. I'm moving out at the end of March into a sick place, I think. So 2 clients, keep the lights on. Launch school is the fundamentals. Launch school is the base. ChainShot's a sexy thing on top. I am gonna go into the blockchain space and build stuff. That's where my focus will be, and probably will always be. And yeah, so this is my video on that. Also, a really cool thing I found was this thing by this woman named Madison Canna called Code Book Club. It's like a little group of people who are all learning to code, probably somewhat independently, and she like wanted to bring people together. She's a developer. I don't think she's self-taught. I think she did a boot camp. But I admire anybody who's trying to learn to code, especially trying to create community around learning to code, because it can be a very solitary journey. And I'm going through that now, and I don't even know if I should be designing my own curriculum, but at this point I'm just going to kind of trust in what Ryan had originally recommended to me, even though it was Ruby. I'm just copying and pasting that into the JavaScript world now, and I have no excuses and nothing but time, so let's fucking get it. All right guys, peace.